Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Farah Kim from WinPure, a data quality management company, and I have with me the ever amazing Amy Biddle from Amy Biddle Consulting, a cybersecurity and compliance consultancy firm. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today and for being part of this important conversation on AI governance. Um, with this webinar, what we aim to do is help companies turn AI governance from policy to power. Now, before we get started and going to the depth of the conversation, I would love to know where you're joining us from. Um, Please feel free to drop your location, tell us about yourself. This is really good for us because it gives us the confidence that our conversations are having a global impact. So before we get into the whole depth, I do also want to give some context to this webinar. A couple of months back, Amy and I collaborated on this white paper called Taking Back Control. And the purpose was very simple. We wanted to help organizations answer a very critical question, which was how do we adopt AI responsibly? And we all know that AI is moving at a rapid pace, and companies are under immense pressure to adopt new AI workflows and processes and systems and all of that. But the thing is, the governance and the systems that are needed to manage accountability and risks are simply not keeping up to pace with the level of AI advancement. It's too hard, it takes too long. And so a lot of companies are still stuck in policy mode. They've not been able to get into operational realities of AI governance. So in this white paper, we try to give you practical steps instead of drowning you in theory. We talk about the risks with shadow AI, which is going to be a very important topic that Amy's going to touch upon. We talk about how clean data is the foundation of AI governance frameworks. And then towards the end of the paper, we also give you a 5-step roadmap to actually start implementing AI governance within your team's data and systems. Um, it also includes an operational playbook for leaders as well. So I would definitely encourage you to download this white paper. We've dropped the link of this in the comments below. Just simply sign in, read the paper, and let us know your thoughts. If you have any questions about governance and data, feel free to send us an email as well. And one of the things that I do want to highlight is that this white paper and this webinar is a very strong demonstration of the partnership between WinPure and Amy Biddle, where WinPure is helping companies with on-premise data cleaning and helping them build a trusted data foundation, whereas Amy is helping with building the governance framework, the structures, and the systems that are needed to implement AI responsibly. So there is my introduction of the webinar on the white paper. I am now just going to head over to Amy. I will let her lead the conversation, but I think the most important thing that we need to talk about right now is the why. Why is AI governance so important in today's time? Over to you, Amy.
Thank you, Farah. I really enjoyed working on this white paper with you. And I feel like one of the things that we quickly recognized as we worked on this is that clean data and governance have to work together through Amy, the work together, to be able to have a cohesive background. And so, together with Amy Biddle Consulting, I try to take that idea and work with leadership teams to implement governance, frameworks, and oversight into the structures around emerging technologies like artificial intelligence. Because as we
Hmm.
see, AI is everywhere.
Hmm.
So, collectively, one of the things that I love about our partnership, especially with you, Farah, as we've worked on this, is that Farah and the WindPure team, they focus on helping organizations really ensure that the data that's being fed into the system is clean. Um, a lot of times you can work within your organization and think that the data that is moving through in your databases, there aren't any duplicates. And so essentially, we have made that one of our core values together along with this tool to ensure that the data that is feeding into those systems is accurate, consistent, and trustworthy. And the reality is just honestly simple. Governance without clean data doesn't work.
Hmm.
And clean data without governance doesn't help manage the risk that is posed to the organization. So when the two combine, that's when AI becomes something that leaders can actually trust.
Hmm.
And I think that leaders today are really realizing that AI adoption is happening whether or not governance programs are ready or not.
Hmm.
So my question in general is that I think about what organizations face, right? And the idea is to understand AI will either govern you or you will either govern AI. So the real question is, how are you going to take it upon yourself to govern AI in your organization?
Hmm. Yeah,
So then go
that's
ahead.
very interesting. No, that's very interesting because, this when we talk about governance, there's always this attention on systems and structures, but there's very little conversation about the role of clean data um, um, that is tied with governance. But I do want to sort of ask this question because this is so common these days, is that within organizations you can see that every person in a specific team or department is using AI on their own. So you've got sales doing their own thing with their own new AI tool, and you've got marketing doing their own thing. So to me, this looks like a whole ecosystem that's very unregulated and unchecked. And like you said, it could um, it does put your organization at risk. So how does this all tie into? Well, I think when we talk about shadow AI as well, I remember I was working with you on this white paper, and I came across this term, and it was very new to me. And then when I did my research on that, that's when I realized, hey, everyone that I know in organizations, small and large, are actually doing shadow AI stuff. um, but there's very little awareness on this. So as someone who's helping companies with governance, how are you dealing with this?
So going back to what you had said about the marketing teams and the operations teams. So AI adoption, I look at it this organically. Marketing teams, there's someone on the team who thinks, hey, let's find an easier way to make our processes flow. And so a marketing team adopts AI tools. A sales team, also in that same organization, tries to experiment with another AI tool that is forecasting models. And then
Hmm.
the operations team is doing the same thing in a different area using predictive analytics. And each decision across the board makes sense, right? But when you look at it from an IT perspective, when you look at it from that risk and governance perspective, collectively, they create an AI ecosystem that leaderships did not intentionally design, because you can't really secure your system if you're throwing in different types of data. And this may be the type of data that might be proprietary information.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
you put it into these models, you don't know what's being used on your system. And so I think, to answer your question, one of the things I like to make aware, like make leaders aware, do you understand what's going on in your organization? Have you talked
Hmm.
to your teams? Do you know better ways of using tools, or maybe some of their suggestions? And
Hmm.
then finding tools that actually fit in with the IT and security side of the house to make
Hmm.
sure you stay within these regulations, but you also help make these people's jobs easier because the whole goal of this shadow AI popping up is each department wants to be efficient.
Hmm. That's correct. And, that's very relevant as well. I think because we're all trying to be so efficient, we never really see the risks that we're actually putting our organizations and even our data under. And the point you said about people using their data in a CRM and putting it into an AI tool to do an analysis, you're literally putting in personal information of your customers, of your clients, without any kind of code of ethics or any kind of AI governance structure to follow. So that puts your entire ecosystem at a risk. Now, I know that the whole governance framework, it sounds very large and it sounds very hard. Um, and that's probably why a lot of organizations shy away from it. But if you were to, tomorrow you get a company that comes to you and says, all right, now I want to tackle this problem. I want to implement an AI governance framework. Where should they start? How should they start? What should they follow?
I Honestly, I think that's a great question. I don't think that question is asked enough. And for some organizations, it's asked all the time. For some, it's not even a consideration. So, thank you. That was quite interesting for you to bring that from Shadow AI into this. So, if you think about it, most of us are operating in an area. Some of the discussion that we're having is we're operating in silos. And if you think
Hmm.
about it, through most of those operations, we each have our own AI tools that are not backed by any kind of structure or governance. So I
Hmm.
know we discussed some of the frameworks in our paper, but to which ones do you think, um, in a sense, when we've discussed, I think that those the NIST and the ISO are very, very helpful because
Hmm.
if organizations get familiar with NIST and AI risk management frameworks, the idea of that background of that paper is it helps organizations identify and manage AI risks. So
Hmm.
having your security team, or even if you have a small house of a small IT group, have those people read through the documentation to really understand what are the regulations, what are the controls. Or then, if you don't use that regulation, but you're also using ISO 4200, which builds on structured AI governance programs, but together, I would recommend cohesively get to know, understand what these frameworks do. And if
Hmm.
you don't have somebody in your organization who has that expertise or they have half of it, that's where I come in. And then these frameworks, I'm able to build custom made playbooks to help you understand what the regulations mean, have something that makes sense for your organization, but still help organizations that need practical systems to be able to operate inside and bring this down to a level where it doesn't matter. Anyone can understand what is being said, and it's not just the technical jargon.
Hmm. That's correct. Yeah. And with these frameworks, I mean, I remember when we were again talking about the white paper and all of that, which I used one of the quotes that you had said at that point, um, as an anchor, because I really liked what you said. It was, before you can govern technology, you first have to see it clearly, right? And to me, and because on the data side of things, we work with a lot of clients, we work with a lot of customers who come to us with the need to improve their systems, or create some kind of downstream application, build dashboards and all of that stuff. But the problem almost always is this, that they simply are not able to see clearly in terms of where to start with. So with these frameworks too, there's a lot of emphasis on the data itself. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about enough. And I'm using this webinar honestly to get an opportunity to start talking about data. I mean, there was a time a few years back where I did not know much about data quality as a concept. But as I have worked in this industry, and as I've worked with WinPure, I've come to understand the importance of data in almost every application and every AI process and every kind of um, analysis and business decision making tools that we use. Data is always the most fundamental aspect that is also always ignored. So, using this opportunity, I think in the next slide, what I really want to talk about and touch upon is the whole idea of what exactly is clean data and why does it matter. So if you see here, I've just started with a very simple example. If you take a look at this data set in the before side, you probably recognize this as a fairly simple contact information that sits in your CRM or in your ERP or in your Excel sheets for that matter. But the underlying problem is something that is very ignored. It's, for example, Mr. Rob here. Is he, yeah, is he Mr. Rob? Is he Bob? Is he Robert? What's his full name? What's his middle name? What's his alias? We don't know. We just have 3 or 5 or 10 different variations of him. And this happens when, like I'll just give my example. If I'm using social media, my name could probably be something else. If I'm using um, an online store, I'll probably give another name. I don't want to give my actual name because I don't want ads coming from them, or I don't want, I have a very specific junk email that's for signing up to newsletters and stuff. But then what's happening is that in a company's CRM, you've got these records that are duplicated, they're inconsistent, they're incomplete. And so when we talk about clean data, there's always this blank question on what exactly does it mean. If you go through the theoretical framework, almost every book or every paper on clean data will say, well, clean data means anything that is any information that is accurate, consistent, and complete. That's a very basic definition. In real world or in real time as well, your data, if it's like this, if it's duplicated and it has so many issues, you need to be able to consolidate it. You need to be able to have that final record that is clear, that is accurate, that is the most updated, that is complete, that is not duplicated. So, Mr. Bob here, your IT team, whoever's working on data, it's their responsibility to ensure that Mr. Bob has the right address and the right phone number before this data is used in downstream applications. Now, it sounds easy, but it's very hard to implement because doing something like this would require either very specialized or trained data analysts. And if you're a small company and you don't have a data analyst, you would probably try to code your way through fixing data. But that leaves you with a lot of risks, right? That leaves you, and if you're using AI, please don't, because you're literally putting this very personal information at risk. Um, that's where I think a tool or a platform like WinPure comes in. And I'm going to shamelessly plug this in here. This is not an advert, but this is actual reality because we've worked with so many customers and we've seen this for real. So please see this as like a very genuine opinion here. Is that WinPure in the land of SaaS tools, we are a no premise tool, meaning that we live in your desktop. And that immediately prevents companies from having any kind of data privacy risk. It prevents data exposure risks. So any kind of treatment that you're doing to your data stays within your network. That's one of the biggest reasons why we've never really taken on the SaaS approach. And if you use our tool, you could clean, dedupe, create master records. You could even resolve this whole identity of Mr. Rob. You can literally resolve him and come up with a clear and complete and accurate version of this person in your database. Now, imagine if you can do that at scale. Imagine you have millions of records, and out of that 20 to 30 to 40,000 of those records are duplicated. that would that is literally garbage data that you have, and if you use that, you risk implementing the gigo effect, which is garbage in, garbage out. If you're going to train your analytics dashboard on 20,000 duplicate records, you're not going to get the right insights. You're going to get inflated information. If you're going to train your sales and CRM dashboards on this kind of incomplete data, you can forget about any accurate insights that you can get out of them. So yeah, I'm not going to keep this topic very
Well,
long, but yeah, you can see this in the white paper. We've given a whole systematic breakdown of how you can resolve data. But yes, if you want to be able to at least start with governance, I would suggest take a look at your data. Is it fit for purpose? Is it good enough to be used in governance frameworks or not? If it's not, then yes, you come to Amy and me and we figure it out for you.
honestly, I agree with that. You might have referred to it as a shameless plug, but one and it might be, but I definitely do agree with this tool because many times in different organizations that I've worked in, I have seen where there has been some chaos, or I've seen where there's been negligence on maybe just two people checking to ensure that the information is, um, accurately input into the system. And then you have issues where some people end up turning over, going to a
Hmm.
new role, and you have a new person who comes in and they think that they're working with accurate information. And so that's where I feel like our partnership is important because through Amy Biddle Consulting, we help all of these organizations, regardless of what type of organization you are, implement governance structures around data and AI systems. And through that work, we would like to deploy the clean and match tool to be able to help you meet those goals as a part of those governance programs because governance frameworks really define structure.
Hmm.
And once you have that structure, you have that idea, but we can make magic with having the clean data. And I can give you
Hmm.
some examples, right? And so we all go shopping, we all go to different shops.
Hmm.
Some of us like to visit regulated shops, some of us don't.
Hmm.
But also in that industry, imagine that a manager is responsible for a store that sells regulated products. They must track customer purchases, inventory levels, and compliance reporting, right? So now imagine if that same system contains Robert R. Smith, Bob R. Smith, and
Sorry,
Billy
Mr.
Bob R.
Bob.
Smith, right? So picture that, right? And then we
Hmm.
have that idea of in this regulated industry, we need compliance, right?
Hmm.
So then you have that customer, one customer with the same type of information across the board, in that regulatory retail store, they think it's one person, but now you're also having a compliance issue on your hands because
Hmm.
this person is visiting the store way more often than they are supposed to, and you're not keeping track of it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Makes sense.
But in a different way, we have the ideal of the sales pipeline. And um, these two examples are some of my next favorites because I feel that I can see people in real life examples who definitely can relate to this. So picture it, a sales director is reviewing an AI driven forecast, right? And then they're
Hmm.
predicting 10 deals this quarter. But then leadership begins planning and hiring around these projections. But the duplicate opportunities inflated the pipeline. So suddenly the forecast looks stronger than the reality. Now, this poses a problem for leadership because now leadership begins planning for revenue that just doesn't even exist, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And the impact, the consequence, I can't even imagine that. I mean, this really leads to real world challenges. You could have layoffs and you could have the wrong kind of revenue projections. There's so many real world challenges to this. It's not just policy, it's not just paperwork.
No, and you see it everywhere, whether or not you're a CISO of an organization, right?
Hmm.
and then you find out someone else is reporting up information and it's inconsistent, or whether or not that retail example, and then the sales folks, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it really, governance has a home everywhere. But this next example hits home for me, and it's one of my favorite examples. So picture you have a sales manager and an operations manager, and they're both evaluating a laundromat location. They
Mm-hmm.
analyze the population demand, the capacity for the machines, and the pretty much they look to see the number of the existing laundromats nearby. But if the data set contains listings that are incomplete or duplicate, the system may show three laundromats in the same neighborhood. Now imagine, how does that fare for
Wow.
the sales manager and the operations manager? When in reality, those two locations, since they refer to the same location, they look at the report and they realize,
Hmm.
wow, we've been tracking the same data for one person and causing our work to be inefficient.
Okay, next time I think of investing in a laundromat, I might just do my location analysis a better way.
So
No, but this go
I
on,
think the
sorry.
beauty is of this tool is it really helps everybody in different organizations, because at the heart of governance and data, it's everywhere,
Yeah.
right? We all
Mm-hmm.
have information. We're all trying to
Mm.
protect it. There's
Mm-hmm.
just a different way that we protect it. And that's where Amy Biddle Consulting comes in, where whether or not you're in the automotive industry, whether or
Mm.
not you're in regulatory retail, or whether or not
Mm.
you have a sales pipeline, or
Mm.
you're the group of folks who are selling laundromats. We can
Mm.
help you clean your data and we can help you organize your processes.
Mm.
So then you
Mm.
have a centralized system where everybody is coming in, and whether or not you have turnover, you have processes that continue to live on, and you can have a continuous management process, which honestly is some of the heart of governance.
Mm. Mm. No, you're right. And oh, by the way, just before we get into this, just to everyone who's listening to us, who's watching us, if you have comments or questions, please feel free to post them in the comments on YouTube and on LinkedIn. We're live on both platforms. We will address them at the end of the presentation, because right now we don't want to mess with our, we're vibing right now. But yeah, if you have questions, please drop them in the comments. Um, Back to this, Amy, I think this example of a laundromat is actually very relevant, because we keep having this false notion that AI governance is just for big companies, it's just for enterprises, or organizations that are juggling in 10 different AI processes and all of that. But then I think even for a small company, um, a, an SMB, for example, if they're struggling to get into AI governance, if they're struggling to even use AI or even to clean their data for that matter, having a framework is actually very important, because the smaller your team is, the bigger your risks of doing things that are unregulated. So I think we need to also kind of overcome this notion that governance is just for big companies. If you're a small company with a team of 5 or 10 or 15, and you are trying to do 10 different things at the same time, governance applies to you as well. You need to have a framework, you need to have processes and structures to help you get the best of the technology that you're using. Is that correct?
Yes, and I would say, I know that really governance should have been implemented yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that I have always loved in my governance career is this is teaching. And
Mm.
AI brings another opportunity for you to teach the staff, but
Mm.
also teach the security department, and holistically be able to teach everybody and have a brand new process. And I would say for anyone who, and please drop in the chat whether or not you have had issues with clean data, yes or no, because I think that with this concept, it's okay to not know. That's what we're here for. We're here to teach
Mm.
you a better way of managing your data and building process for you. There's
Mm.
no shame in having the messy data,
Mm.
because now you have a way forward in cleaning it and working together with your processes.
Perfect. I wanted to touch on something important as well, and because you were talking about regulated and all of that, and regulatory compliance is something we do address in the white paper. So I was just hoping we touch upon this situation, for example, where if you have regulators start asking questions about AI systems, what do you say to them?
I think that's a great question. I have seen that throughout my career. And I think that's another thing that Amy Biddle Consulting helps. I have sat there with auditors on, and I've worked on each side of the house. So I
Hmm.
understand what you need. And so I can provide a audit prep environment for you, right? And then also that comfort of feeling as though you understand what you're going through once you're going through an audit and to know what you're going to be facing. So I definitely think it's important to help organizations understand the process of how an audit goes, what in these different regulations go into different subsections of controls that you actually need. And controls are certain areas that explain what documentation that you need, and
Hmm.
go in depth in a regular consultation. But going through the compliance audit, I think I can better bring this home because we all have to have healthcare, right?
Hmm.
We have to understand how that works. So I'll give you an example, and I think we all see this on the news. In 2025, there were several hospital systems that had reported that clinicians were quietly using unsanctioned AI tools, right, to
Ooh.
help write notes. Now imagine that's all our information. That's our healthcare information. But they're not trying to do it in a malicious way. They're trying to actually help be more efficient, which I think is
Hmm.
the thread of what we've been talking about the whole time. So they had AI tools which help write clinical notes and answer clinical questions. So that's the classic concept of shadow AI that we've been talking about. And
Hmm.
although a tool is introduced with good intentions but no formal oversight, now imagine the problem that that posed. So one of the hospitals found that staff were pasting snippets of protected health information, into
No.
external AI bots, creating serious privacy issues. And that's where that goes into that HIPAA piece, right?
Hmm.
And so then this was about an AI sepsis prediction. And the project, the people who were working on the project with the information thought that the project was underperforming because
Hmm.
of the poor fragmented data.
Hmm.
So then their response, which is probably one of my favorite ways of solving a problem, was to stand up an AI governance council, and to build an inventory of AI tools, um, to strengthen the backbone of the governance program, to strengthen the data, to
Hmm.
include a master patient index to clean and index the records so that they could actually approve a small subset of tools clearly, and to explain to the users and the regulators to which systems are being used and how they manage that risk. So, in regular English, they found a solution similar to how we're trying to come in and help your organization and clean up the data, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And they showed evidence of how they fixed the issue. So they were able to
Hmm.
mitigate problems. And to our explanation, that's what we come in and help. So whether you're
Hmm.
a highly regulated industry or you're the laundry folks who are just trying to make sure that your customer lists are properly
Hmm.
shown, or maybe you're working in the regulated industry and somebody's only supposed to come visit a couple times a week, right? If that. Um, this way of what they did in the healthcare thing, they mitigated the issue. And I think overall, we're trying to come in, help you build your documentation, help you clean your data, help you
Hmm.
understand why you're even doing this, and then to have that process to understand and feel comfortable when you're with the regulators.
Interesting. And that healthcare case study, that's quite a scary example. I'm just thinking about that in my head because just for the sake of efficiency, I mean, and like you said, there's no malicious intent. It's just for the sake of efficiency, and because AI is so into our systems and works processes and everything, we don't think twice. We just go like, oh, I need to summarize this. Let me just grab that and put it in there. La la la. This person is diagnosed with this. So yeah, that's a very real world case study, and I think that's where governance sits really well. Um,
I
Speaking
think,
of,
oh,
go on.
and to your point, I think this all comes together where once you know what's on your systems, or what you know that these folks are using shadow IT in silos, this brings awareness for
Hmm,
leadership to make a plan, to find something that can work with the folks on your team, and to have, that buy-in, but also to have that ability to secure what's so important to the heart of your organization, and to
hmm.
put that customer risk at bay, and to make your customers feel comfortable to not think that their information is breached.
That is true. And I think we need so much training on this. We need so much awareness just on this topic itself, that you don't just copy paste information from your systems into an LLM service. Please don't do that. Speaking of governance, and I think this is the heart of the white paper as well as of this webinar. This is what you've been spending 30 minutes for watching us. So if we were to get started on this governance roadmap for any company whatever their size, um, what does the roadmap look like?
Okay. Well, step one is just your normal visibility. Map out where the AI systems operate across the organization, right?
Sorry,
And
we're just flipping between slides.
no worries. So really get that visibility. Talk to your folks.
Hmm,
Um, really try to understand where AI is operating across the systems,
hmm,
even in ways when it's not supposed to be, right? So at least we have that understanding.
hmm,
We walk in, and then, define the ownership. Who owns this? Who owns this information? Who owns these systems? So define the governance and the oversight and the accountability. And then the
hmm,
next step, I would say, is really, let's get into these frameworks. For this instance, we'll use these two. The NIST AI RMF and the ISO 4200 that we have gotten into. And for your organization, whether it's sales,
hmm,
whether it's um, the auto industry, where they have separate governance, we can actually tailor it for each organization depending
hmm,
on the frameworks, and we have that understanding. So
hmm,
then we move on to that next step, understanding what's on your systems. What are you protecting?
hmm.
What is it? What is that proprietary information? And that's where we can go in and we can start to work to make that dirty data clean.
Hmm.
And
That's
we,
yeah, that's very insightful. And and like I said, this framework, it sounds simple, but in theory, I mean, even in practice, a lot of companies try to do this, but then they get stuck on the first part. Just the mapping itself would take them probably, 3 to 4 months. And
mhm,
then as they're trying to work through this, the whole problem of the data compounds because they're not really treating the data, they're making it as just an add-on to the process instead of actually considering it as the most important part. Um, Eventually that compounds and it comes to a point where they just aren't able to keep up with everything, so they're trying to solve everything in silos. So you've got your teams and your people and your process and your data. Everything feels very disconnected. But I think to your point here about visibility and about ownership and asking what kind of tools are you using, who's
mhm,
accountable for them, what's your ethical framework for that matter, what are the code of ethics. And I remember I keep saying the code of ethics because I did have a chat with someone about this a few weeks ago, and they simply told, like, it was just a very general conversation, and they said, well, they have their own personal code of ethics when using AI, right? And so everybody now has their own personal code of ethics. There's no structured organizational level code of ethics. And that could be as simple as you're not going to put in PII information in LMM services. That's as simple as that. Or you're going to be more systematic about the kind of queries that you put into AI. Again, that's just another personal thing. So yeah, this was very
I think that's where you've brought out some really great points, because we keep going back to necessarily step 3, because step 3 and step 4 help guide this process once you know
hmm,
who owns it. And then you have to build a culture of monitoring it. And that
hmm,
maybe that's where we come in. And we, if you don't have folks who are on staff to monitor this, you can bring us in and we
hmm,
continuously monitor, and we help you with that process to get used to monitoring and reviewing your systems and reviewing your paperwork, and to understand, to make sure that these processes still work even after
hmm,
they're implemented.
hmm. That's true. I think we have a couple of questions in the chat. Amy, do you want to maybe take them now, or should we?
I think we can come back and come back and we can connect with the folks and maybe.
Okay, okay, cool. There is Yeah, I think there's this one question that I feel like maybe I should answer because it is important. So someone's asked. Oh, by the way, if you still want to ask a question specific to your setup or your organization, I've dropped my email and the WinPure website. I've dropped Amy's email and Amy's website right here onto the last slide, and my colleague will be dropping this information into LinkedIn and YouTube as well, so you can literally just pick from there and send us an email and get in touch with us. But there is one question here that's very interesting. It says, you talked about on-premise. How does that help with AI governance when AI is still relying on external LLM services? Where does data privacy fit into the framework? I think this is a very relevant question because um, um, from what I know, and my colleagues, Catherine, could answer you this better because she handles all the customer interactions. But from what I know, I could tell you this, that on premise is literally the safest way for you to deal with your data right now. Nothing goes to the cloud, nothing leaves your network. So any kind of data transformation that you're trying to do within your system stays there. And this alone is one of the best ways to keep your data protected, because we keep hearing about data breaches, we keep hearing about cloud systems going down. I mean, there was such a popular I'm not going to take the name but there was a huge cloud system that went down a couple of months ago, and people were logged out of their systems, they couldn't access their data. You have all of these issues that are happening in the real world. Hackers have gotten smarter. There's always this question, or there's always this case that you see of companies losing millions because their data got exposed. So for us, the message that we're trying to put out here is that on premise in 2026 is literally the safest way for you to process and take care of your data. And then obviously, if you're using Amy's framework, for instance, that the whole framework, correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, the whole framework is based on security, and it's based on governance. So privacy becomes a very crucial part of that, which is why we encourage it, which is why I think Amy is so passionate about WinPure as well. Are you, Amy? I'm just saying this. Are you?
I
But
feel
she
like
did.
we've
She
been
did say this to me.
shamelessly proud of this tool, but together, um, I feel like this tool or opens up an area where I've had random conversations, whether I've been in the store or a coffee shop, where somebody's just talking about their day. But at the
Mm,
heart
mm,
of the issue is some dirty data, and there wasn't enough clear information for them to report up to leadership.
mm,
And actually, going to the chat, I noticed that there are two questions. What if we're a small team? Do we need data cleaning and governance? Everyone needs it. Everyone.
mhm,
And so, if you would like to get in contact with me, I can better explain, understand what your organization does, and to help you understand what that mission is going to look like and that vision. And in terms of, we have a second one
Hmm.
who also asked about the frameworks and the estimated timeline to clean and transform. I try to look at governance as not just a one stop shop, right? Because it's not something that you just pick up at the grocery store. It is like having a tailored dress. And what I
Hmm.
would like to do is let's get on a consultation, 30 minutes, to understand what the requirements of your organization are, right? At that
Hmm.
point, I can be able to help you understand what that timeline looks like.
Hmm.
Um, and you walk away with the knowledge of not only learning about the frameworks and learning more about AI, but you understand and you are patient about how long it may take or how short the project may take. So
Yeah, that's brilliant. And yes, and I think we are now at 45 minutes. This was a little longer than we anticipated, but we had so much good things to talk about. So, all of the links to our white paper and everything is given in the comments. Please make sure that you download and you read, and let us know your thoughts. And then again, if there's anything you want to discuss specifically with us, please feel free to reach out. And that's it. With this, I just want to say thank you to Amy for being such a valuable partner of WinPure, for collaborating with me on this white paper, for this fantastic webinar, and to everyone watching us, thank you as well. We will make sure that next time we come with more interesting content.
thank you so much, Farah, for
Thank you.
um,
Thank you.
working together on the paper. And definitely, anyone, if you're looking to speak with us and to learn more about both sides in this partnership, please feel free to visit amybiddle.com and schedule a consultation or shoot me an email, and we can map out your starting points.
Perfect. All right. This is us signing off. Bye bye. Take care. Bye.